morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the Tuesday telecast from the Joyful Path. Today, we are having a small group, just three of us, and we are talking about rising feminine energy. Now, what is the feminine? What are we talking about? Are we saying a bunch of females flying? No, we're talking about the part of us that we all have and that we have pushed down in many ways and told that it's not okay. Well, we need that. We need that in balance, and even to take the fore when certain societal and global stuff hits the fan. So we are looking at that and exploring that conversation of what it is to raise our feminine energy, and where is the precedent for this rising feminine energy. So without further ado, I am going to bring in our two other guests, Allison Jeffries and Virginia James, and bring them into the house. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And here is our small group on the rising feminine energy subject. So I want to start this out with first having, because it's been a while since we've had her on the channel, let's have Virginia explain a little bit, just to, give us a sentence or two about what you do and why this topic is interesting to you.
Yeah. So hello, everyone. Virginia James here, and I am the CEO founder of Feminine Sage Wisdom. And it's been an organic process because it launched online in February 2020, and we all know what happened that year and at that time. So, what I love about this conversation about rising like feminine energy, what we call that, how we feel about it, just in our own selves, I appreciate that it can be organic, that it can be ours, that it can be also collective. And I struggled with this for so many years that this is why it's so much more important to me now. And now that I've grasped onto it a little bit more and loved on my inner feminine more and more as the years have gone on, that's why I want to talk with fellow folks about this, because it matters and it's time. So that's why I'm here, and that's why this is so important to talk about.
Beautiful. And Allison, to let everybody know a little bit about why you are here and what you do.
I'm Allison Jeffries. I'm the author of A Woman's Guide to Surviving Divorce, best-selling book on Amazon. And I am currently a self-proclaimed wise woman because I don't have any other title for it, and life recreation coach for women. And the most important thing is, as we grow up, as our culture changes after the Industrial Revolution, things have changed. And they started changing very, very quickly, throughout my lifetime. I went from phones attached to the wall to now computers and all this stuff. And what's gotten lost is who we are as women and what we need to be happy and fulfilled and to fulfill our purpose in life. And I feel I've been blessed with a lot of that knowledge to understand who we are and how to help women regain that sense of confidence in themselves and their feminine power.
Beautiful. And I am Lydia Laurie Bustler, your host, and I am here as a solopreneur and someone who has changed my course in life, someone who has been a feminine brass player in the world of music. So that's been kind of one of the things that has been a little bit different for me. Who am I? Do I need to have all this masculine energy in order to play this instrument? Do I need to go into places and be only masculine? because that's really what it was. And having relationships break up because I was spending so much time with only men, 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 because everyone who played my instrument was a man. Yet there are so many non-males playing this instrument and playing brass instruments and getting harassed in my lifetime, either for their ability to can they play this instrument with their little female selves or their different selves, and that they need to just buck up and play like a man. And it's not flying anymore. It's not flying at all. So that's one of the things in my background that I can definitely bring to the table. So I want to start out by saying there's been just shifts throughout history in where the feminine rose, where the masculine rose, and really we need both. But you can't squelch the feminine. So all of a sudden, lately, a lot of people are starting to embrace their feminine energy. I see that as a lot of current events, current culture, and current natural occurrences that have happened in the world. So what do you see? Do you see any influx of people returning to, or finding, or scratching their heads and saying, what is this feminine part of me? I need more of it. Neither of you can hop in.
I have to say that absolutely. If you get into groups of women, there are certain topics you can bring up, and we all go, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And one of them is, who we were when we were little girls, and that we wanted to grow up and we wanted to make a difference. And whether it was to sponsor an orphanage or whatever charitable thing, as women, we all have that drive to do some good in the world. And I probably have never met a woman that didn't say, yes, there was something when I was a little girl. But then as we grew up and as we aged in the society that we're in now, with all of the technology, with all of the access to education, with all of those things, it's that sentiment of we can do anything a man can do. And that's not wrong, because we can do anything that some men can do. And, some women can do things that men, find hard. It's, each one of us has our individual talents. But the difference is somehow we overwrote thousands or millions of years of evolution and wiring as to who we were and how we enacted in our societies in just 3 or 4 generations. Telling us that we are weak, telling us that we didn't have the vote because we weren't smart enough, telling us that we couldn't do jobs because we weren't physically or mentally capable, telling us we couldn't do these things, and us getting enough of a taste of the fact that we could, that we pushed back. But pushed back because at some point we were told we should. We were told we should. And that created such a rift inside of us as women, because we were so busy, as you said, Lydia, trying to compete with the men in their way, on their level. And the point was, we never needed to compete. This world needs men and it needs women, and it needs strong men and it needs strong women. What it doesn't need is strong women and weak men, or weak women and strong men. It needs strong women and men. And that's what's been taken out of our understanding of who we are. And when we can put that back in, everyone becomes stronger.
what I like about what you said, Allison, is that that we all belong. When we're born, we belong. And then we go and reshape ourselves to what other people and society has told us. And there's nothing wrong with that in ourselves. We can't beat ourselves up about that, because we are just simply responding to the stimulus that's around us. And that's what every baby comes with the ability to do. And eventually, that baby is inside of us, and it's us, and we come forth, and we do this. But as soon as we say, no, I want to be more in this way or that way, it cheapens the human race to say you can only be a certain way when you have instincts to be exactly who you are, and do it in a way that is going to rise up more effectively to do the tasks that you have to do. So we're pretty much built with all of the sense to do that, to have our best part come forward for different tasks. But we decide to push that down or mask it. And we're not masking anymore. At least most of us aren't. So as we step away from this masking, and not masking is a term for whatever is in us that's not enough, putting forth what everybody wants to see, we think. So we put on this mask. So if you have an ability to talk about this, like when you have pulled off a mask or put on a mask, I would love to hear that from you.
Yeah, I'll dive in on this one. I think that without digging in too far, because I know we have a time limit, but I think I grew up in a very patriarchal household, even though I was the oldest. I have a couple siblings, and what we grew up in was very rigid in roles, gender conformity. What is gender? Who does what? What does being a little girl or a woman or or any of these things mean? And so I really recognize that this aspect of masking, as you defined it, Lydia, is very real, because we put one mask on to survive or get through something. We might take that one down and we say, hey, we got a new one. Let me put this new one on. Because I think I will say this real quick before I forget, is there's a lot of grace that we have to weave into this journey as we discover our feminine selves, or what that energetic looks like within. And so when I went year after year after year living in this patriarchal go rat race society, masculine drive, all this crap, almost said a word, but this crap, like
Yeah.
in the end I burned out. Like that was it. I burned out a couple times, both in about 2017 and 2020-ish, before the pandemic, and for different reasons. But really this drive, whether we want to call it a masculine drive or in that kind of energy, really, I'll be very plain, it was to fill a void within, because I was trying to fill this cup with different certifications and licensure and degrees and job titles and looking good, and even with femininity, like great jewelry, great clothes, but it was never the thing that I needed. And so I think, like, after burning out a couple times in this way that I can't live in, I have finally decided that in my, upper 30s, I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. My body literally does not like this method of living. So, you know, to circle back, I think like when we can start, it's like a radio frequency, when we can start shimming that dial a little bit, because we've only heard static for so long, or there's been static within us for so long, and we're tired of going through 87 masks. I think that's where that whisper, that spark, when it's there, we got to listen to it. We can't keep ignoring it, because she or it or they are going to come on back. Like, it will come back. I believe that fully, as a spiritual being, that these lessons will continue to come around. But that's where the feminine, divine, or whatever you want to call them, and says, okay, honey, it's okay. Timing is timing. Let's do this. So that for me, that was my journey, because I just couldn't do it anymore. And I couldn't have people in my circle that did the same thing. And that's a whole different story, this aspect of community and choosing your community. But yeah, but Allison or Lydia, you know, feel free to take it from here too, because I just wanted to share that aspect. Mm-hmm.
I just, that is so spot on, Virginia, because, you know, you look at, as women, we start out as little girls and we're taught to be very good little girls. And what is a good little girl? Obedient, doesn't talk too much, plays well with others, follows direction, easy to get along with, right? We can all agree. This is the definition we as women were raised to be good little girls. We grew up, we went off to college, we became these vibrant, badass women who had a mission and something we wanted to say, and we got big and we got bold. And somewhere along there, you know, we fell in love. Maybe we got married, and then we're trying to figure out, how do we be the good wife? How do we be the good wife? Well, the only role model we've ever been taught is that good girl. And so while someone fell in love with us as this vivacious, vibrant person with a mind and an opinion, and then we start falling back into that one role model that we have. Now, here's my problem. When I was working on this material and I said, I'm going to look up, you know, definition of a good girl, which I don't suggest anyone do, because that's been so bastardized now that all you get is X-rated sites. Sorry, it's the truth. So where did I find my definition? I Googled qualities of a good dog. Now let that sink in. The definition I just gave you for what a good girl is, that we choose as we grow up to default to, because it's the only one we've got, we became the family pet.
And it resonated. Your words about what we were supposed to do when we were little resonated.
And we had nothing else to default to, so we went back to it. So we literally were taught to give away ourselves to follow the direction of someone else, what we should do. And that's where we as women have to come back to it. And then unfortunately, all the different voices, once you know, we're fortunate enough to get an education, now you got to use it. You should do this. You should make your mark. You know, I'm a little bit older than y'all are. And when I started in the corporate world right out of college, there was this thing, you have to do this for the other women coming behind you. And I looked at the women who were older than me, and, you know, they were the real pioneers in the corporate world. But yet there was only one way for them to make it, and that was to be a cloned man. And they were worse at backstabbing other women than men. So it was a horrible environment. I came up and I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a woman. But what I didn't understand was, just because I put on the suit and the heels and the pantyhose, I thought all of that was what made me a woman. That was my mask. I was operating as a man. I had a 6'5" military officer for a father. I had 2 older brothers, 2 ex-husbands, and 2 sons. Gee, why did that side of the world make more sense to me? Okay. And so there I was, thinking I was working like a woman because I was dressed like one and had on the makeup and had 2 kids, only to learn at some point in life I was living as 2 people. One when I was at home, one when I was at work. And neither one was the full and complete me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I finally had that opportunity to merge the 2 and live authentically as myself, it's in my relationships, I now get to be the girl. And I know that sounds so simple and so easy, but it was a hard fought battle. And it doesn't mean I'm weak. And it doesn't mean he makes all the decisions and chooses everything. No. It means we consider each other just in different ways.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think that it does speak to a lot of people. Either the idea that, I mean, not everybody's story is the same, but there are similarities. And for me, I was told to definitely keep silence and just be quiet. Let them think you're stupid and open your mouth and leave no doubt in their mind, were the words that were used to me. And it was but if people are in a group of men, and I'm actually not bashing men here. I am, I'm not bashing any of that. But if there's, because um everybody's gotten the short end of the stick here. But when you have a group of men who are acting the way men should act, sometimes they don't know how to bring up somebody who's not a man also. So sometimes there is this energy, and I think that's what I got in the brass world in many ways. And my way of being loud and being strong. The thing is, there's a way in which I play, which is singing. And it's not just being loud, and it's not just being precise, but it's not being sloppy either. Because what it is going for the end goal, what the story is, what the vision is of the music that I'm trying to put across. So when I came into when I first moved to Italy, I was in Italy for a little while playing, and there weren't men playing there weren't women playing my instrument. It was, so they just hadn't come across this idea of a woman playing a horn, and they said, they welcomed me with open arms. And then when I played, they were like, how did you make that sound? I said, same way you did. But then the way that I went about it was to show that I could do it just as well as they could, that I could be just as strong, that I could be. Later, it's come to, how do you play with this kind of beauty, with this kind of line, with this kind of attention to the feeling? And that's where people have come to learn from me. And that's more of the feminine side. And men who have been men their whole lives or not, are trying to find that. And that's the thing that is really interesting, because it works. We need that balance. We need that strength. We need those feelings. And otherwise we're one part of a one-sided relationship with ourselves. Like Allison, you were saying, there's you and there's you, and it wasn't flying. If we don't mend that rift and actually bring up the part of us that is the yin, the the woman, the one who has the nurturing, then we can't even nurture ourselves. So my next thought is that I ask you about your how in the last, let's see, last 4 years you have approached this this feeling of rising feminine energy that so many people have had, that we've been hit with this how we approach and find the strength and the wisdom of the feminine side when we're struck with everything that's going on in the world.
For me, I think it's all about finding balance, as with everything. Everything. It's about finding balance. It's either too salty or it's not salty enough when it comes to our food. Everything has to be in balance. And we have this impression that women have to be way over here and men have to be way over there. And in studying and in learning and, you know, finding different sources to get this information from, not to mention the silly stuff that just downloads into my brain in the middle of the night and you wake up and go, ah. But there's that beautiful principle in the Indian culture of Shiva Shakti.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And I looked at it and I said, okay, so we've got a dichotomy. But the more I dug into it, I found the beauty in it is that it's not so much that you're all one or you're all the other. Mm-hmm. When you're in the Shakti energy, the feminine energy, it's 51%. When you're in the Shiva energy, it's 51% instead of 49. So it's about finding balance in this world. Finding that middle road that is your road, because not everybody walks the same path and not everybody's balance is the same tipping point. But finding that balance that works in here for each one of us. And having that passion to understand that the other person isn't going to have the same balance as I have. And that I've got to celebrate them for who they are, as much as I want them to celebrate me for who I am. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm really glad, Allison, you brought up balance, that aspect, because I kind of see sometimes these journeys that we go on, whether in one chapter of our life we have to be more masculine energy because we're literally trying to survive something, right? But then also we need to nurture ourselves as, you know, the feminine energy as well to get through those times. And I think for me personally, I can only speak for myself, the last 4 years I have very much struggled with nurturing myself before or while I'm being a warrior for others. It's very easy for me to be not just a warrior, but like a mother hen. And I don't know if any of you have raised chickens, but they can be like mean, whether they have babies or not, or they're brooding and they're just moody, you know, and they don't want you near their nest box, you know, even if they're not little babies yet, or ever. But I think for me, because of growing up in a patriarchal household, after breaking free from such status quo and conditioning, etc., over time, it's very hard for me to not still be in this masculine presence of let's save the world because shit's falling apart yesterday. Okay. But it's not like you say, Allison, it's kind of like a 51% here, 51% there, or even I'll just add a little bit from, again, my own perspective, is that when we think of source energy or those light-filled energetics of love and empathy and compassion, regardless of what we look like, act like, be like, what our jobs are or not, you know, whatever. I think like when we can really come to that balance within. So 1 minute I might be the warrior on LinkedIn and say, oh no, this is not okay. But I'm coming at it from my now more feminine nature saying, this is not okay and here's why. because I've connected pieces. I'm looking at this from a different perspective instead of just diving in, kicking ass, taking names, right? So like, anyway, my point is, I think like there is an ebb and a flow. There's more, we got to, have more Shakti sometimes, a little bit more Shiva, and then we have to love ourselves through that whole journey if we get it wrong. Like, or if others get it wrong. And I think for millennia now, we've been very much in this heavy masculine orientation and conditioning that is, my opinion, breaking things literally down. Like Gaia is breaking down, but she rebounds. She can rebound. We've seen it. I believe in it. Women can rebound. Those who are non-binary and trans, they rebound. Everyone on the margins, I think we can rebound once we're truth tellers with ourselves and where we're at and what we need, and then trying to figure out how to communicate that effectively and safely as much as we can. But it's a dance, and we don't always get it right. So there's a lot of grace in there too. So
yeah, the idea of grace and of inner balance. I think the thing that I had the most peace with in the middle of like shortly before the pandemic, actually, quite honestly, was realizing that balance is a point within chaos, and that we have the ability to have balance when we're not like it's either this or that. And I think that's one of the things that is part of the feminine energy, is that ability to say, yeah, we can do all of this. But when we're too much in that, when we don't have that balance, oftentimes we say, yes, we can take care of all of this. And then we're giving ourselves grace all the time. And so, I've swung to the point where sometimes I'm saying, yep, got to give myself grace. Yep, got to give myself grace. Holy moly, I am giving myself grace all the time. Now I got to get something done. So, there's so the balance is really, really important. But the thing is, the lack of balance causes us to come into balance because it's a reaction. It's a natural reaction. Everything that we do, every action in our life that we do, there's some sort of consequence, right? I mean, no matter what happens, there's a consequence. We may think that we can affect this over there, and if we do, though, we're going to get the consequence of what we do and what happens over there, and it all comes back on us. Ultimately, we think we're affecting that, but we're affecting us and affecting that. So when we have all this, this millennia of breaking things, energy, there's a pushback. There's a pushback from the earth. There's a pushback from society. There's a pushback in our health, as people are reclaiming this. But likewise, like I said, if I'm like, oh, I'm constantly giving myself grace, that's another consequence where I'm saying, okay, so I need to come back to the middle a little bit, because I'm too far to I'm not going to call it left or right, but I've just gone off the bell curve a little bit, and I'm not in that balanced place, but we bounce back on our own. So as a result of this idea of bouncing back, if it resonates with you, how have you seen some natural consequences to some of your own either imbalances or failings, and bounced back to find that good place? And how has that helped you to be a better coach, a better person who's helping others?
I could say that for me, the biggest lie ever told to me was you can have it all. You can do it all. And I don't want to say you can't, because you can do it all and you can have it all, just not at the same time. I mean, there's X number of hours in the day, and I have worked on time bending for years and I've gotten it pretty good, but there's still not enough hours in the day. And you look at, as I was growing up and I got my degree, and here I was, my biological clock was ticking, and I wanted to have kids, and I wanted to have a career, and I wanted my career to grow, and I wanted my kids to be, and at some point I am but one human being. And when I couldn't be the mother I wanted to be, but I couldn't be the employee I wanted to be because I had a sick kid and I had to be there, and you go back and forth, at some point it's that realization that what we were told was a lie. It was a beautiful lie. It was a grandiose lie that looked very good on paper. But at some point, we have had to choose what would suffer, whether it was our relationship, our children, our job, ourselves. And what usually suffered was ourselves. And we cracked and we broke a little bit every time we were forced to make that choice. And I am so proud of so many of these young women these days that are coming up, and they're realizing that myth that you can have it all can't be done at the same time. And they're being more conscious of the choices they're making, taking the word what I should do versus what I want to do. And when we as women and men learn to do what's right for us, we will come into balance with each other as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Allison, is this aspect of suffering. And I think that, usual is at least my situations, usually through this lifetime so far, I don't know that I'm suffering until it's freaking like 3 months into it and I'm knee deep, drowning in the tide that's so high above my short little head. Like I'm just like, oh, how did we get here? Huh, that's weird. And I think like what makes me kind of live life differently now, allegedly trying to, it's always a journey, but is two aspects, I guess, of what this conversation has been about today. But number one is obviously awareness. And I know people can just like, oh, whatever, oh, just self-awareness. I don't freaking discount that. Is a life skill. It's an art form. And whether it's awareness for ourselves or awareness about others and where they're at or how they fill our cup or how they don't fill our cup. And number two is just in this conversation this morning, I've been thinking about this aspect, or what came in my heart or intuition is this aspect of sacred. What does sacred mean for Virginia? What does it mean for Allison? What does it mean for Lydia? What's the sacred, or what I call my work, soulful life? What does that even look like? And if somebody says, well, you can't have that, the defiant rebellious side of me says, watch me. I might not know how to do it right now, but I will figure it out. And I feel like this is like using awareness and utilizing my definition of sacred, which can change in 5 years, by the way. Who cares? It's our lives. But I feel like that's really helped me redefine relationships, redefine the way I do business. I actually was just about to put a LinkedIn post this morning about how I'm capping the community aspects of my products and services. No, it's not just about revenue, because with these events, I want intimate, good, authentic connection and talking about stuff like this. You can't do with 300 people in a room. At least that's my 2 cents. And so really, I get to redefine every day in every interaction that I have. What's sacred to me? Am I living in my attunement or awareness of what I really need as Virginia, or this spiritual being, if we want to take it to a whole new level? And so those have been my guides lately, the last few years, and I've lost relationships over it. And the people pleaser, like Allison, like you're saying, we're all like defined in these ways. And I'm just like, I still feel guilty about letting relationships fade. And I'm like, why? Why? Because that crone within is saying, oh, honey, it's time. It's time. That doesn't fill your bucket anymore. That job doesn't fill your bucket. That relationship, whatever it is for anyone else. But those have been my guiding principles lately. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of something I used to tell my kids is, growing up, they had a bad day at school the day before, or something went wrong and they got in trouble. And I'd always remind them the next day, you get to choose who you are today. And if what happened yesterday didn't work for you, choose differently today. And that's what I think is missing in this whole thing. When I got my degree in psychology, we were told your brain was set. And by the time you're 21, it was done and it was baked and it was never going to divide anymore. And those were all the cells you were going to get and you're done. Well, thank God neuroscience has come so much further. And now we know that no, our brains are continually growing and making new connections, and we can rewire this puddle of mush that we have up here. That's nothing more than all the stuff that was put in, and we can choose what stays and we can choose what goes. And I've always said one day I'm going to do a TED talk, and the title needs to be, It's Always Been Your Choice. Because I think as women, that's what we had taken away from us, that knowledge that we did have choices. We were so busy trying to live up to what our mothers raised us to be and still make our fathers proud in a way that our brothers were supposed to, because we were told we should do both. And we never got to choose, like you said, what fills our cup. We're busy filling everybody else's cup out there, and ours is bone dry. And, at some point, how are we helping this world when we've allowed our cup to run dry and even crack so it can't be filled again until we fix it? And that's where it's that choice every moment, and maybe not even 5 years from now, what fills our cup or what our passion or our purpose can change. And if we wake up in the morning and say, I choose today, I choose to be me. And that's what I choose to be me today. Whatever that looks like, I'm going to choose to be my best me. And, it's in the choices that we make that we didn't know we had. And that's what we need to change for these next generations, to let them know it is always their choice. And that's a divine right.
Filling our own cup is something that everybody has to do. Everybody is talking about the oxygen mask on the airline, but it is true. It is extremely true. You cannot take care of somebody else if you're dead. That's what it comes down to. You can't do it. And this is kind of vitally simple, and yet it's something that we kind of forgot, or we kind of pushed aside. It's not like we didn't know it logically, but it didn't mean anything. It was just one of those things that once you already know it, you just kind of push it aside. And we just kind of pushed that aside and pushed it aside and pushed it aside and kept taking care of everyone else, because eventually we would be happy. But that's not where the happiness came in. Filling our cup, though, is not so hard as doing the we figured this out later. It's not so hard as having to literally go and go to the well and hoist water for ourselves and then hoist it for everyone else. It's finding what it is that floats our boat, that gives us a feeling, that gives us that gut feeling of it being right, makes our heart feel good, makes us connect to the people that we want to connect to, allows us to go aren't ready to be connected to us right now, and we're not ready to be connected to them, go away so that we can let them go. When we have that kind of relationship with ourselves and with our world, where we know what it is that we want, our cup naturally is just always full and overflowing. Hard to get to that place though, because we're so, we push it aside. We're like, that's just nonsense. It's so simple. It's all so simple. And yet somehow we're here talking about it because we get messed up. We do get messed up. And that's okay, because we learn, we live, we learn, and we're healing the relationships from the past that also were messed up and messed up and messed up, and they're healing too. So that's the whole idea of filling our cup. It's not just about, don't want to push everybody away when you do that. Certainly, if there are relationships that aren't serving, yeah. But pushing everybody away is more like actually just taking care of ourselves. And then it's amazing the people that come when we do that.
That's very, very true. And the opportunities, right? But not in what people said the opportunities needed to be, right? Whether, that it was conditioning, patriarchy, supremacy, any of that. It's like, no, we get to practice defining what this looks like for ourselves. And it could be
Right.
different. There's 8 billion people on this planet. Like, it will all be different. That's all right. And this actually makes me think, if I can say this real quick, Lydia, about this workshop. Maybe now a month or two ago, I did on toxic positivity for a women's community and network.
Mhm.
Ooh, it was even hard for me to give. I was just like, oh yeah, you staying in the job too long because you think that mission and vision, it's gonna work itself out in that strategic planning session or whatever. You stay in the relationship too long. But I think the biggest driver, even if we're still trying to figure this out, as long as we can be truth tellers to ourselves, we don't necessarily have to tell everyone else just yet, because we're kind of figuring it out until we're ready, or we might have language around it, or we know now how to change our narrative or our life narrative or our story. And so I think, like, but even as we're discussing cups and leaky cups and not filling cups and all that, I'm imagining like freaking duct tape and, like trying to stitch it together, put it like in another cup, all of this. And either way, whether your cup has duct tape or freaking sticky, like what's that, sticky tack from years ago in school, or whatever it's made out of, is your cup. Right. And there is this aspect of choice. Like, I'm going to choose to be truthful to who I am, and I'm going to keep figuring it out. And then I lastly just want to say, and then we're going to find a collective of beings or women or whomever who also show up, like the right people show up and they say, oh, me too. Hey, we should keep this ripple effect going, whether it goes forward in time, backwards for healing, outwards. Right. And I think I always think it's a beautiful opportunity for sharing and growing together. And I think that's also what the divine feminine can be, is creating in whole new ways.
I loved everything you just said, and an analogy just kind of popped into my head, is that we go through life playing it as a team sport, but yet as an individual contributor. And the question is, do you put the team ahead of yourself, or do you put yourself ahead of the team? Chicken and egg. You have to do both for it to work. But again, it's down to that, finding that right fine balance point for each one of us. Because heaven forbid somebody tell you you're, as a woman, that you're showing off or you're bragging, or expounding, no, you leave that to other people to do, but yet we're supposed to know who we are and what we want, and we're allowed to shine and we're allowed to celebrate. So we've gotten so many conflicting messages. At some point, maybe we'll all figure it out. But I think it's, as you said, Virginia, granting yourself that grace and getting to that place where, you just realize it is what it is and we do our best. And that's all we can do.
That's how progress is made, is when we keep going, when we give ourselves the grace and say, I don't know how this is happening, but I'm going to make it happen, as opposed to, I need to give up because this all isn't right. Or my cup is broken and now I can't go on. There's the analogies that I got were of me in field hockey, and when I had foot surgery, and I ended up becoming the manager for a year, because wasn't a good time for me to run around on the field. I ended up hauling all the balls. I don't know how that helped my foot, at all. But, about all these field hockey balls and a bag that was half as big as me, that was heavy. But, and I ended up being in this space where I just had to make it work. And I'm just thinking of that, hauling all of those balls. And then the idea of wabi sabi kintsugi, the art of taking broken pottery and filling it in with gold, and that makes it super strong. And the gold is not, it's not the money that we earn, it's the wisdom that we have. It nurtures us, and it cleans up all the rifts in that cup, and all the other things that we need to fix. And some things will go by the wayside, because they do. We learn that we can't control everything. And that's where we lose the myth that Allison was referring to. We can't take care of everything, but we can. There's always time and room for what's important. So we can repair with gold and nurturing and spirit what it is that we really need to work on. And that's, I think, what brings us into this room today, why we are here. So to close, let's leave people who might be watching this, who may be just coming to this place of, I'm stuck with all this male energy, and either because I'm a man, or because I'm a woman and I'm stuck with all this male energy, or I'm transitioning and I don't know how to settle in, and give a word of wisdom as to how to embrace that side, that wise, sage side of ourselves.
The thing I would leave everyone with, and the thing that the hardest thing I have to teach my clients, and the most important thing for them to learn. If you take a room full of men and a room full of women, and you say, what do you want? The men are going to give you an answer. The women are going to look at everyone else and say, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? because we've been taught not to acknowledge what we want because maybe it's impossible. And sometimes, when I say, let's make a list of things, we have to start with things they don't like so they can get an idea, so they can maybe come down to some things they do like. Why is it so hard for us to make a list of things that we love about ourselves, that we love about our lives, or that we want to do? But yet you tell me what's wrong, and you ask me what's wrong, and I can go for it. And the phrase and then when we finally do voice what we want, it is so big and it's so impossible that the only thing I can say to my clients, well, and people in hell want ice water. So let's come back down and let's look at what's really important here. And that's the big conundrum that we face as women, because we want to make everyone else happy. So if I say what I want, it means no one else can be happy. So I can't say what I want. I just can't. Whereas I'm teaching the women to say, it's okay to say what you want. It's okay to know what you want. But then you take the next step and you say, is it physically possible? And if it's not, it's not. That's okay. And if it is, then you look at it as to how does this affect everyone else in my life that I care about? And if I choose not to do that thing that I want to do, I'm not giving in. I'm replacing my want consciously with what's important to me, instead of the way we've been going through life, subconsciously giving ourselves away each and every day, each and every decision, each and every what do you want question that we can't answer because we don't know.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to kind of spin off on that too, the wisdom I have is, well, I guess it's kind of two-part. So first of all, kind of getting to like that clarity, like you're saying, Allison, is this idea or this approach of, and I have a sheet. It's a long story. We don't have to get into it because it's the end of our chat. But like I have this sheet or this guide thing, and you basically say this is what I want, kind of, right? And then we dig in a little deeper. Why is that important to you? Okay, why is that important to you? There are 6 spots on this piece of paper, or something, 7 maybe tops. And it's just like the point is to root into, and I don't mean the superficial why. What I mean is like root into who we really are in our very core. Whether you believe in multiple lifetimes, whether you believe this is the one and done, like it doesn't matter. Like, why is this thing, whether it's a goal, an objective, a pivot, or anything, so damn important to you? And then why is that even more important? Because it gives us language, and we're beautiful communicators, even when we don't know it, even our body language, when the words don't come out, and so like those roots are so important. And I'll say, like, it's so important because so many times, like if you think of it as a forest in a windstorm or a rainstorm, we get blown around with everything we need to do in the day-to-day, every 5 freaking seconds or something, taking care of everybody or the world or something. But we need to keep, like out here in the Pacific Northwest, you need those roots to be deep. Otherwise, you're just gonna go right over that little cliff edge or erosion, et cetera, in like one good rain. So I think the roots really matter. And I can't define that for you, Lydia. I can't define that for you, Allison. I can kind of define it for Virginia because like freaking life lessons. But so the rooting matters, however that works. And then I'll also say in my own work now, in my business and the women I work with, I could see a common thread in all my personal and professional experiences. But when I was so go, or rat race or masculine energy heavy or whatever, leaning in, I didn't see that thread very clearly because I had to stop. And my body friend and society and everything stopped for me with burnout, etc. So like those are the 2 points, is dig into your roots and keep finding out what those are. But also look backwards a little bit. Don't get stuck in it, but look backwards and try to look for those common threads that gave you soul, that gave you life. And then we try to create a future that has more of that. So that's my speech. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Find what it is. Ask yourself what it is you love, what it is that gives you purpose, that gives you contentment, that gives you drive, that gives you vision. What, and when we don't know what we want, that's okay. Just ask yourself, if I knew what I wanted, what would I want? And you will get an answer from your wiser self. There's always time for what's most important. If we don't take it, it will come back. We will have consequences, and there will be suffering. And we've all suffered for enough time. It's time to rise up and take care of what's important, and you know, starts inside of us, and starts with nurturing the things that nurture us back. So this has been a great conversation. Thank you each. I have this fly that keeps deciding to, I don't know what it's doing. I guess it likes being inside in the winter. I appreciate each of you and your wisdom here in this room.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us together. Really, this is so important for the work that we're all going to be doing now and forever. So thank you for this space, Lydia, and Allison, of course, for chatting with us too and just holding space together. It's great.
Get three women's minds together and that are open, and you see the level of support. And that's what I would say to any woman out there is find your soul sisters. Just find them. They're looking for you too. And we need that. And we can rely on that.
Absolutely.
There you have it. That was our discussion of rising feminine energy and what it takes to bring that up in you, nurture that spirit, and bring it all into balance. I appreciate you being here. And if you liked this particular show, please hit like. And we'd love to keep promoting this channel. So if you have not done it already, to come back and hear more, please gently push the subscribe button. I appreciate you being here. Please let me know if there's anyone you would like to see on the channel or any discussions that you would like to us to approach. You can leave that down in the narrative down below in the comments. You can also reach out to me up above. As always, I appreciate you. Stay real, stay cool, stay warm wherever you are, and I'll see you next week on The Joyful Path. Ciao.